Jay Richardson. Let's see what nuggets Jay has for us today on the Fresh Anointing Show. Let's listen in now with Jay Richardson. The Fresh Anointing Show.
Yeah, my man Jay. Come on.
Top of the day to you and welcome to the Fresh Anointing Show. Thanks for joining us on another great day that God has given us. I'm glad that you're here with us, and you know what I say. It is a day that the Lord has made, and we ought to rejoice and to be glad in it. Today, I have joining with me as we talk about mental wellness and how to deal with some of the issues that pop up in the realm of mental wellness. And I have Takia Isom here today. Did I get that name right? Takia.
You did.
Hey, wonderful, because I am known for messing up names, so I'm glad I got it right. I know last time we were on, I called it, I messed up your name, just said it like that. So I'm glad I got it right this time. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. Busy as a bee, but I'm good. Thanks for being a part of the show and coming on to talk about mental wellness and to sort of help us and give us some tidbits on how we can deal with mental wellness and in the Black community as well as in our Black churches today, and how we don't have to be, how do you say it, bogged down or running away from it, but we need to run into it and deal with it. And I think you're the right person to help us because that's your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and how did you get into the mental wellness part?
So I am a high school biology teacher, but I'm also a graduate student at at Winthrop University. And there I'm studying to obtain my master's in social work. So through that, I have learned a lot about mental health, and I'm continuing to further my education when it comes to mental health. And the reason why I chose to go back to school after starting my career of teaching is because working with high school students, I noticed that a lot of them were dealing with mental health issues that they didn't know about. They weren't aware of, and they were kind of just struggling, not really knowing why they were struggling. And so I'm like a problem solver. So when I see a problem, I like to kind of figure out, okay, what's causing the problem, and then what can I do to help? And so in that, building connections with my students and just talking and listening to them, the common theme was stress, mental health, depression, et cetera. And that was preventing them from thriving academically. And so from there, my solution to that was for me to go to school and work on obtaining my license in social work so that I can provide them with the resources that they need in order to focus on their mental health so that they can then thrive academically and then thrive also in the community as they grow older.
Yeah, so what I hear you saying is that just because someone has a mental illness doesn't mean that's the end of the day. That's the end of life. That person can still live a blessed life, a great life, in spite
Definitely.
of. Okay. So
Definitely.
so as we get into this, tell us a little bit about what mental health really is. What is mental health?
Okay, so just to give you a background, so the National Alliance of Mental Health Illness, known as NAMI or NAMI, if you will, describes mental health as a condition that impacts an individual's way of thinking, feeling, behaving, or even their mood. And so mental health conditions can alter and influence the way an individual lives their daily lives and even interacts with other people. And so they explain that mental health conditions are not caused by one event. They can be caused by a number of factors, including genetics, environmental factors, traumatic experiences, stress, and even lifestyles. So it's a lot that goes into mental health, which is why there's not a lot of awareness of it, because we've lived our lives in stress. We lived our lives dealing with traumatic life experiences, not really being able to pinpoint what it is and how it's affecting us.
So as I had up on the screen earlier and talking about living with purpose, and as we deal with these mental health issues, do you think that it is important that we focus in, that we can live life with purpose if we deal with these mental health issues that a person may have? You know, when I talk about purpose all the time, and we have to understand that God has given each and one of us a purpose. So we have to live that purpose intentionally. We can't just, we just can't say, okay, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna do this and do that off the fly, but we have to be intentional about living life with purpose. That means that I have to look into whatever those issues are as a person with a mental illness, and I have to deal with it. And I can't just kind of sweep it up under the rug, as they would say back in the day, right? I have to really be intentional. I have to have intentionality and know that I can still have a great life, but I have to live it with purpose.
Exactly. And I like to think of it as, and I can speak from my experience personally, before working on my mental health, I didn't know my purpose. And so when you deal with mental health issues, whether they are severe or whether they are minor, it really kind of can cloud your train of thought. It can cloud your thinking, it can cloud your perspective and your outlook on life. So by getting rid of that cloud, you're opening your eyes to see your purpose, to understand who you actually are as a person, and knowing that your circumstances do not have to define who you are. Your past doesn't have to define who you are and dictate your future. And so I think of addressing and handling our mental health a way of seeking clarity, seeking purpose, and understanding, you know, why we are here and who we are as people.
I like what you said. It's really not allowing our thinking to be clouded, because a lot of times people don't really know that they have a mental illness. And many times people we deal with don't know that that person, even in their family, even as friends, don't know that they have a mental illness. They kind of chalk it up as maybe it's behavior. It's just the way this person acts, or it's personality. That's just the way that person is. So I want you to talk about, and you know, what are some of the signs that we need to look for when we talk about mental illness or mental health?
Okay, so some of the signs that you can look for in adults and especially adolescents would be withdrawals from like your friends, family, or either other activities that you maybe used to be into, or just in general, just withdrawing from the comfort place that you used to have. Constant feelings of sadness or feeling low. Those are some of the signs. Extreme mood changes. So you can be really, really high in your mood and kind of in that euphoria state to where everything is just perfect, or, you know, going back to that really, really low place where nothing is working out the way that you wanted to, and you just see no light at the end of the tunnel. Low energy is a sign of mental health illness. Trouble sleeping, excessive worry and fear. So if you're always worried about, you know, what's going to happen next, or what that person is thinking about you, or just worrying and fear about anything in general, excessively doing that is definitely a sign of a mental health illness. Prolonged or strong feelings of irritability or anger. Overuse of substances like alcohol or even drugs, thinking about suicide. And then the last one that I want to share is the inability to carry out your daily activities or handle daily problems and stress. So if you are easily stressed, just by the simplest things of everyday life, that's another indicator that there may be some issues.
Yeah, you mentioned some signs that also go along with depression. Is there a way that you can tell the difference from a person that's being depressed, or is depression a part of a mental illness?
So depression is actually a part of mental illness.
Okay.
It is one of so depression and anxiety are the two most common.
All right, I want to take it a bit further, and I'm just throwing this out. So I want to help people to make sure they understand how important this is, because when you look at it, sometimes people have this post-traumatic syndrome. PTSD.
Yes.
How does that play into some of those things that you just talked about?
So even post-traumatic stress is considered a mental health disorder. And so prolonged, just you dealing with the post-traumatic stress without treatment, that can lead to severe depression as well. And so anything that alters the way that you view life and the way that you handle life is going to be considered a mental health awareness act. And what happens is the severity. So depression can be more severe than, let's say, the average person who deals with maybe just anxiety or social anxiety. So they only have that anxiety, in social settings. So there's many different levels when it comes to mental health awareness. And it's really a big umbrella. But typically it's our everyday life. And I wouldn't be surprised if majority of the individuals in the world have some type of mental health illness, whether they've already dealt with it in the past and they're just able to overcome on their own, or if they're still struggling with it now and have no idea that they're struggling with it. Because anything that takes you outside normal function is considered, a mental health issue.
That's amazing. You said that. When you said that, I thought, do I have a mental health issue?
And I think there's a stigma to it, and there shouldn't be a stigma. It shouldn't be a negative stigma to it. It's literally our health. It's how we function as people. So if you are able to go through life without experiencing any mental health issues, that's a miracle to me, because we all handle stress. We all deal with stress. We all deal with trauma. We all have things go through that impact us, whether it's for a short period of time or a long period of time. And so we all have to work towards perfecting and managing our mental health in order for us to stay afloat and be active.
So with that being said, I got to get you back on the show to talk about these different levels. Because you said something that struck a nerve. I'm like, that's interesting though. When you think about it, you're absolutely right. Because sometimes as you talk about the levels, when you talk about a person that's depressed, that person may be they may not be on that high level of depression. It may be just for a short term or something happened in their lives that they get in this depressed mode. So to give you an example, when my mother transitioned several years ago, and I did her eulogy. I was good up until I finished the eulogy and stepped down out of the pulpit, and then I lost it. And then got to the gravesite, and when they began lowering her casket, I lost it again. And from there, it took me a week before I could get out of the bed and start going back to my normal daily routine of life and living life. Still didn't get to that full point, but after a week, I was able to kind of okay, I had to shake it off. Was that a sign of, that was like a depression, right? I was depressed of what had taken place.
I wouldn't necessarily put the label depression. So depression is something that has to be clinically diagnosed. So it has to be diagnosed from a professional, but you were going through grief, and that grief took a toll on your mental health. That would be the better way to say that.
Yeah, that's it. So I want to go back to a word you use, and I think it is very key when you talk about this stigmatism that we have with mental illness and mental health, because nobody wants to divulge of that I have a mental illness. Nobody wants to be labeled as a person with a mental illness or that I have this mental health. So what I hear you saying is, don't allow the stigmatism to hold you back from getting the help you need, which I want to lead into the next question for you is, what resources are available for adolescents, and not just adolescents, but as a whole, for people that they can be comfortable in saying, hey, this is what's going on in my life. I need to be diagnosed. I need to find out what's happening, because this is something that's continually happening in my life.
So if you suspect that you or someone that you know may be a mental health issue, definitely seek aid from a mental health professional. So that's the number one thing. You do not want to try to self-diagnose yourself with depression and anxiety, because though there is a method to the diagnosis. And so mental health, again, is the awareness of it is fairly new, especially after the pandemic. Like common illnesses such as cancer or diabetes, mental health doesn't have a medical test to diagnose. You can't go to the doctor and say, hey, I think I'm depressed, can I do a test? That's not really necessarily how it works. And I can speak again from my personal experience. When I went to my doctor to speak about my mental health, she actually referred me to a mental health professional. So not all doctors are able to mental health illness and awareness. So it's important to kind of make sure you are seeking the help of a mental health professional, someone who has the experience and the knowledge. And so through that, when you connect with the mental health professionals, such as therapists, social workers can also point you in the right direction. They will be able to use a diagnostic statistical manual, which basically is kind of like a book that has symptoms and disorders, and that's typically how they diagnose patients when it comes to depression, anxiety, and et cetera. And so that's going to be your first step, is definitely just seeking that professional aid in your situation or that other individual's situation. In addition to that, social workers can connect you to different resources within the community. So I know, especially for teens, there are a lot of enrichment programs that exist, whether after school, during the summer, them in like life skills and providing them with mentorship opportunities. In fact, through CMS, there's an organization called Right Moves for Youth. And so they actually partner with the police department and Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools to provide students with life skill development opportunities. And so they meet in groups throughout the school day and sometimes virtually online, and they just have conversation. They have conversation about, advocacy, conversation about, what their goals are for life. And in that conversation, if students are going through something, that's a safe place for them to talk. Because sometimes with mental health, all you just need to do is just talk, to get it off your chest, to get it off your mind. And that's one way to kind of help. In addition to that, I know for a fact that Charlotte-Mecklenburg School Systems has a SEL program, which stands for learning. They implemented this after the pandemic to help students get reacclimated with school life, and then just, again, learn about their social emotional learning skills. And so with the SEL programming, what they're focusing on is 5 competencies when it comes to mental health awareness: self-advocacy, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and then responsible decision-making. And so by practicing those skills and, having conversation and just learning about the importance of each of those, that has, from my experience, helped a lot of students recognize when things are not right in their life, or take the initiative to do meditation, or have conversations with a safe adult when they are feeling overwhelmed and overworked when it comes to school or work themselves. And in addition, I got a lot, sorry.
Oh, no, that's good.
Yes, in addition, of course, the North Carolina Department of Health, Human Health Services definitely is a great resource when it comes to finding professionals to provide you with mental health aid. And then the National Alliance of Mental Health, they have a base here in Charlotte. They also help with advocating. So spreading the word about mental health awareness, providing resources, support groups, and educational opportunities. So there are a lot of resources being created when it comes to mental health, not only for adolescents, but for adults as well.
Yeah, that's so important. And when you look at this whole piece, how can we get our churches and communities involved in just assisting and helping to deal with this mental health issue that we have going on?
I would definitely say for church members and even churches as a whole, just finding out what organizations exist within the community, finding out ways to help. So whether it's volunteering, pretty much volunteering. So if there are organizations that are in need of volunteers to mentor students or to just work with students, definitely get involved with that. Creating opportunities for people to come together. So some churches have life groups. So I think life groups are a great way to get communities together. You can have life groups for teens, like maybe do different age levels. for teens, adults, etc., and just have a safe place to build connection, to talk about mental health, to make it more of a norm instead of something that people are running away from and feeling like, oh, we don't have to talk about that, or we don't need that. We just need to keep pushing through, because it's important to talk about it. Also checking in on your own mental health. You cannot help someone out of their situation if you aren't able to save yourself from it. So checking in on yourself, making sure that you are in a great place when it comes to mental health, so that you can be an example for others. And then I would also say by holding organizations and programs accountable. So if their mission is to aid in mental health awareness, make sure that they're upholding that, making sure that they are providing the resources and the aid that is needed. And then also in terms of like the political world, advocating and spreading awareness for mental health and challenging government officials to implement policies and provide funding for the organizations that are going to put mental health first, provide the aid and assistance that's needed for our schools, because a lot of schools and a lot of individuals, especially in the minority community, don't have access to the resources. And so they're not able to get a therapist. They're not able to constantly meet with a counselor. And so being able to really have policies in place to make sure that everyone who is in need of help is able to get it, I think that's also very important.
Yeah, before we close out, Takia, I want you to speak to the parents and teachers as we talk about the adolescents, because I think this is so important. A lot of times what happens with us as parents and teachers is we overlook a child's mental health, a mental wellness, a mental illness, whatever terminology fits there, for maybe bad behavior. How important is it for the parent and the teacher? Because a lot of times the teachers are with these children day after day, for long periods of time throughout the day. Mm-hmm. They see certain things going on with a child, but they will chalk it up to this child is acting out, or this child is misbehaving. But they really don't understand there's something deeper than that. How important is it for the teachers and the parents to pay close attention? And if this child is continually doing this, to have them checked out to make sure that it may be a mental illness that's going on, or something that they need to really look into and not just chalk it up to this child is misbehaving?
I think it's very important. It's very important to pay attention to the signs, pay attention to the patterns, because if there is a child or just anyone who has constant, what we call negative behavior, it's a reason for that. And so it's important to discover the reason for that. Is it because of something that they're going through? Is it because of a situation that they're currently in? Is it fear? So I challenge everyone, teachers, parents, community members, to find the why. Instead of just chopping it up to say, oh, that child is bad, or, oh, that child, didn't come from a good home, or, they're just dealing with whatever. Figure out the why, and then provide them and seek actual help so that they can figure out the solution. What can help? I know for me firsthand, it literally just starts with a conversation. If I have a student who is normally upbeat, and for whatever reason they come into my classroom are, not their normal selves, a light bulb is going off in my head, like, okay, hold on, there's something going wrong. I need to go ask that student how they're doing. And literally just by saying, how are you today? I noticed that you are not your normal upbeat self. Is there anything going on? Opening up that conversation and allowing for them to speak their truth without judgment, without, fear of getting in trouble for, revealing their truth, because maybe they were doing something they had no business doing, right? But they don't want to tell you because they're going to get in trouble. So give them that safe place to open up and express, what's going on with them. I think that's very important, especially as an adult. Typically, if a kid is doing something they're not supposed to be doing, your first reaction is to punish them. But if you listen and don't jump to punish and jump to figure out why were you doing that? Why did you feel the need to go and do X, Y, and Z when you knew that would get you in trouble? And have them to reflect on that that will take you a lot further than just chopping them up and saying, oh, they're a problem, or even just chopping it up to say, oh, well, they got depression, let's give them medicine. There's always a reason behind why someone is doing something. And if we're able to discover the why, then we'll be able to discover the solution.
That's powerful what you just said right there. Excellent. We have been talking with Takia Isom about mental health and some challenges that many face in our nation today. She's given us some very good nuggets to kind of chew on and to think about, and how we can be better in helping the church. The Black church can help. In our communities, we can help. Please listen to what she has said. Pass this around to your family, to your friends, and people that you feel that will benefit from this, to get involved and not just overlook mental health, mental wellness, mental illness. Let's partner together. Let's all of us come together to make this a better world that we live in. Thank you so much, Takia. I got to get you back because we got to talk about those next levels, because I'm thinking about myself. No, but
I'm definitely happy to come back.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, family, once again for joining us on the Fresh Anointing Show, and want to make sure that you know that you can join us on the Fresh Anointing Show. Even if you didn't get the live broadcast, you can also listen to us on demand at freshanointingshow.com. You just go there and look at whatever video or podcast you want, because we do both. We do the podcast, the audio side of it, and then we do the vodcast, which is the video side. So if you miss an episode, you can always go to freshanointingshow.com. You can check us out there. You can just tell your family and your friends to go and pull it from freshanointingshow.com. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, pass the word along to the Fresh Anointing Show. We're here for you to try to give you the best that we can to help you to live life with purpose. Until next time, may the Lord bless you real good.
Thanks for joining us. Keep your head up. And until next time, remember to forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past, because God is doing a new thing, a fresh thing. Can you see it? The Fresh Anointing Show.
To be bold and put Christ on display and let this gospel be shown so God can have his way.
The views and opinions expressed by the program participants are not necessarily the views of the Fresh Anointing Show.